Yeah, you're just basically offering them up as a free target, and now we've got that Spirit versus Spirit matchup mid, which, well, I'm not 100% sure that Mr. Jeans is going to appreciate it all that much. It's going to come down, as we often say with those Spirit matchups, to the rune control. Which of these two can get those runes and make the successful rotations out of mid to really get momentum going for themselves? So, Mr. Jeans, I mean, the second they picked up this Storm Spirit, they knew that a lot was going to be on his shoulders. The question is, who can they get to alleviate some of that pressure? And honestly, that is not a bad pick for the Medusa, but that doesn't do a whole lot in terms of that just mentioned concern, because now your Storm kind of has to carry more of the burden for longer until the Medusa is ready to go herself.
Yeah, and it's definitely a little bit scary, I think, now coming into this final pick. Of course, I like that two-based rush their pick because you are taking away from something that Yuma could have very possibly wanted, but again, it's a Medusa. It's going to take a lot of time, and that's where we're still waiting for Benjaz's hero. And unfortunately, when you wait all the way till ultimate last pick, you are not going to get ideally what you would want unless a pick really flies by the wayside here. I think that's why D2 Hustlers are really thinking about this final ban. There isn't a lot. All of your A-listers are out, and they've done a really good job, I think, focusing back onto the Lycan again. They would have liked it probably if they could have picked it up in the situation. Both Bane and Shaman very weak. But now it feels like the best hero for simply two-based would have been to have that Mars that D2 Hustlers pretty much first overall picked. And we'll have to see if that's actually a big drawback for them, especially because they need to find someone independent enough to lane with the Nyx Assassin. Nyx Assassin is really good at pulling those creep waves, trying to get his own game going, but at the same time, you get left alone a lot. You see this Nyx Assassin rotating over to mid every 2-4 minutes, so you need someone that's going to be fine by themselves, and really the ones that are always fine by themselves kind of aren't in the pool here. If they go for a hero like the Sand King, can definitely see them getting punished.
Yeah, the Lycan taken away, the Beastmaster already out as well, and LC and Nightstalker banned out in Phase 3, so the options are a little bit thin. Meanwhile, on the two-base side, AM and Ursa both being taken away, heroes that just ruin Medusa's day with the mana burn, so not bad choices on that front. And now we'll see what the play is here for Yuma. I mean, they did pick him the Troll in the last game, who is a hero who does not normally build up a Diffusal Blade. I suppose you could try and sort of push that in to the item build, but instead they go in a different direction. They pick up Morphling.
Yeah, I think really wise. Of course, they would have liked a PL, but of course they've been out themselves early on. But the Morphling is something that Yuma has proven time and time again why he is so scary on the hero, as well as you do have a slight morph target, that being the Winter Wyvern in this game. And if you do get to become the Winter Wyvern, you're pretty terrifying. You would then completely win the range matchup versus the Medusa. Of course, the best benefit of Morphling is that you do just kill this Medusa's mana pool pretty much instantly. Your first wave is so efficient whenever you go in at the beginning of these fights. In addition to that, natural Ethblade carrier versus a Winter Wyvern, whoever gets cursed isn't going to die most likely, as well as having a Bane to play versus it as well. I think they've really done a good job of making this Wyvern seem not as good. So we'll have to see what they end up now picking for Benjaz, because again, you would have liked really the last two bans that D2 Hustlers ended up taking out. Both the LC and the Nightstalker would have felt great versus Morph, but instead, again, we're gonna have to see probably that instant disable hero that's okay laning. Sand King is the only thing that I can muster at this point. They'll probably surprise us with something else, but really, without a hero like that, it feels like D2 Hustlers are going to be in a position they're very comfortable with, where they farm and they get to that 30-35 minute mark, and the Morphling just kills everyone.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the Sand King looking like an option. I guess we've seen some teams go in for like the Centaur play from time to time, which the results there have been kind of mixed. He doesn't quite do everything you need him to, but well, okay, that is neither of the heroes we were looking at. It's going to be the Venomancer for them instead, so that is an interesting choice. It is someone that certainly gives you a lot of sort of DOT to work with in these fights. I just have concerns about Benjaz's durability in these engagements, especially looking at heroes like the Void and the Morphling who have high damage and mobility to work with.
Everything is on Mr. Jeans now. he is the beginning of the fight, he's the end of the fight ends when he is out of mana. That is what this pick has really done to their lineup without really having that playmaker in the offlane. Of course, they pick up this Veno saying that we are going to give you everything in our power to give you vision for your jump, to allow you to know where this Shadow Shaman is, and that's a job that Veno is very good at doing, but everything will be coming from Mr. Jeans now. It's going to be a very important position for him to have a good game. If he can get ahead in a lane that he should do very well in, Storm versus Void is a fairly Storm Spirit favored matchup, but you just need to pull away just that much harder because you are the person that needs to get this game going for your teammates. And again, unfortunately, this is going to kind of come down to a farm fest. And I think when it comes to activity, D2 Hustlers just make plays a little bit easier with all of their heroes, where yet again, two-based are going to be more reactionary. They're going to be more about that counter initiation than the actual initiation. It's going to be them trying to out Dota D2 Hustlers here. And we definitely saw them do that in the latter half of that first game, but they got to pull something else out here.
Mm-hmm. And it should be noted, they were able to pull that off in the latter half of that first game, but not indefinitely, right? At a certain point, the momentum for that Simply 2-base side kind of petered out a little bit, and D2 Hustlers reestablished control. So, well, you gotta sort of toe that line a little bit, right? You want to draw it out for the Medusa to get her strength, but you would also like Mr. Jeans to be that sort of guy who carries the torch for you, who can hand off the baton. If they get that perfect transition from Storm Spirit dominating the mid-game stage to a Medusa then coming in the late game, then they're going to be absolutely fantastic. But that handoff is something that we kind of very rarely see. It's nice if you can get it in theory, but the actual execution is significantly harder considering there is, you know, another team trying to prevent you from just free farming your Medusa all game long.
Yeah, it's going to be difficult, and I think that's where, if anything, try to shut down Monster a little bit more, because talking about the first 15 minutes of that game, Monster was just everywhere. He was so obnoxious on this Mars. He got his Blink Dagger at 11 minutes into the game, and then suddenly everything really started to fall apart pretty quickly, and that's where, again, it is going to be down to the vision that Benjaz is able to provide with his hero, because if they get caught out, it's very easy for all these D2 Hustlers heroes to just flood on top of you. Not to mention, again, they have that Nightmare setup. It's Nightmare into Hex, it's Nightmare into Spear, it's Nightmare into Remnant, and then the play is made.
Yeah, they are going to have, honestly, a whole lot to work with here, getting onto their opponents. And yeah, if that happens, as you said, there just aren't too many defensive options for Simply 2-base that are going to work out for them. So we'll see if they can avoid those exact scenarios as we do get back underway here. Had to pause for a brief reconnect, but we're ready to go. And look at Divide. This is just a very forward push that he may not be too happy with now, but they're not going to be able to chase much further than that. Mr. Jeans, I mean, you're not taking Vortex at level 1, so you don't have the pullback, and at least they're able to get some damage down. But really, the Bane makes that move knowing no one is really going to be there to punish him unless it was all 5 heroes sitting on that high ground.
Yeah, and yet again, Flea values getting that high ground vision, placing his wards before really anyone else. A lot of times they stick 5 heroes in the mid lane when they do have this Bane Mars, just because you want to look for the kind of crazy Nightmare into Spear back onto the tier 1 tower. But I think everyone is valuing that it's pretty dangerous to be in this mid lane situation. I think nobody's going to mind going 2 for 2 here.
Just an even split, no funny business. As you said, the risks at this point kind of feel like they far outweigh the potential reward. So it's going to be a pretty straightforward setup. We'll settle into that lane, but I am very much interested to see how this off lane goes for the 2-base side. This Venomancer pick was not really what either one of us was necessarily expecting, and under normal circumstances, I don't know. You don't really look to see the Veno get too aggressive unless he's got a pretty vulnerable target to hit up with the Gale, but you do have a little bit more setup for it this time with Widge. Impale into Venomous Gale can certainly get you onto, honestly, either one of these heroes. Yuma only at level 1 attribute shift, obviously this early on he's level 1, so if you can hit him up, you can put pressure on him, you can get Devi as well, you get a 2-man stun, because why not from Widge? Fancy work there, but I just want to see how much they try to really play forward in this lane.
This doesn't work.
Sir, that...
Yep.
Wishful thinking there, yeah. The Bane's just going to shut that down so often, but did Widge Yeah, he did. He just body blocked that that camp. So both supports sort of getting a little bit of gamesmanship in there, but yeah, you can't really do that. But if you're Widge, I suppose, just in case Davai Lama wasn't paying attention, you do have to try, right?
Yeah, and it looks like they're trying. Unfortunately, Widge still holding the impale. They did such a good job, honestly, from
There
these
it
two
is.
hustlers on the first wave. But yeah, Device steps up a little bit too far forward, and having Nightmare level 1, he doesn't have that easy brain sap rebuttal. But until then, that was a really good first wave for them. But unfortunately, no one can get ranged last hits in this wave. I think 3 of the 4 have already gotten denied. It's just that difficult for, I think, the Benjaz to actually get any of them on his own. And with Wiz using the Impale like that, you only have 3 Impales before you're out of mana or you need something else. And he actually lost his Courier as well. So it's going to be a little bit longer here. But still, fantastic support play really across today. Everybody's really been on their A game.
He blocks the camp again. Okay. I mean, Davai was probably going to be blocking it as well at that point, but they're just making sure this pull really can't happen. So Yuma, I mean, he really isn't being punished too heavily for this. This is not pushing that far forward, but the fact that they don't have that equilibrium reset at all with the creep camp to pull to means that Yuma has to put that much more effort into sort of holding the lane where he wants it himself. What are we doing still with those denies? Still pretty high up there. 5 for the Morphling, 2 for Benjaz, so we continue to see them sort of focusing on that front. Meanwhile, Divine Widge, well, they're getting a little bit close to each other, but Benjaz himself just used his Gale on to Yuma, which it's not a bad play, but with Widge not close enough for any follow-up, they really don't get anything out of that. But if you're the Veno, just be as annoying as possible. Put the DOT onto Yuma so that he has a harder time manipulating those stats.
Yep, and unfortunately, once you get, again, a few levels onto the Morph, he's already level 3, so that just means that now the danger is closing, and Morbid Mask is going to be finished as well. I think he's waiting to send out maybe a little bit more regen alongside with it, but still, on to Devi.
Top lane, they're
There's a
trying
few
for
right clicks,
Boris
but
at the same time. We'll see. Well, okay, Widge goes down first, but up in the top lane, Boris is actually going to be able to walk away. They don't have the damage to finish it, and Empyrean comes in with the level 1 Splinter Blast, so they will take down Flea. It's a 2-for-1 trade. Or, well, maybe not. Monster, one more hit, will be able to get the kill onto Empyrean, so that sort of, well, evens that up just a little bit. But I do believe Widge was the first to die in that scenario, so D2 Hustlers get maybe a slight advantage there with that first kill.
yep, definitely. And of course, when you kill the 5 comes back and salves Yuma, gives him a clarity, gives him his Morbid Mask, and it's like he never even needed a courier. So it's just stability granted, and you see that already the next assassin has walked over towards the mid lane, just trying to guarantee that these runes do go the way of Mr. Jeans. But unfortunately, that does leave Benjaz on his own, and you see how scared he is to walk up in the lane. It's a nice lane ward as well, just knowing where this Veno is playing exactly, and he's got the laning Veno build too. He is 2-2-0, so he has got no option to go to the jungle at this stage, and
Okay.
he won't for a very long time.
Widge, you got to actually get over to the lane. He is holding his teammates' boots right now, but hasn't actually gotten close enough to deliver them, so there we go. You can act as the courier, but if you're going to do so, you know, get the items to your teammate. As Devi, getting pretty heavily hit there. Benjaz holds his fire on the Venomous Gale, and I'm not sure they needed to. Although, yeah, with that Brain Sap sitting at level 2, they didn't have quite as much damage as they probably would have needed to find the pickoff, so they do show a little bit of respect there to Devi, but I don't know, this Venomancer, as you mentioned, he's got more of the sort of differing, skill build than what we are used to seeing, or I don't know about used to seeing. We don't see the Venomancer often enough to really get used to anything, but he is trying to adapt to this lane as much as he possibly can.
Yeah, it's annoying. It's going to be rough, and really the most interesting thing going on right now is Flea getting chased around in the top lane, but the Morphling is also going for a Midas, so we'll have to see how he decides to pace himself here. But Devi, I
Smart
think he's going to be
CP,
fine.
yeah.
Yeah.
Just gets right on out of there. They used the Impale, he popped the Spike Carapace, so there's nothing left, and is he really going? Yes, he is. Okay, he is going for the Midas. That's, well, I mean, insanely greedy. There's no such thing as a non-greedy Midas, really, but on your position 1 Morphling in particular, it's just kind of unorthodox. Normally we see the boots into a rush for something along the lines of either just the straight-up E-Blade or the Yasha from him, but maybe Yuma a little more conscious of the fact that he's got to try and match the farming pace of a Medusa in this game.
Yeah, and really the other nice thing to talk about is with the runes going down, S got lucky, gets to bag an arcane rune, and unfortunately for Mr. Jeans, S has battled and actually won the Sentry War as well, but Widge,
He's just going straight in for it. Widge did
okay.
not... He didn't really respect the damage there. He does manage to get off the Carapace when he got hit by the Remnant, but that doesn't actually prevent him from getting pulled in, so Esk still had the setup, and that's a pretty easy kill for your mid-void. And he didn't even use the arcane rune there.
Yeah, it's because Mr. Jeans very simply was rotating over to farm the large camp stack, the stack that he got himself, but still kind of a bizarre death. At least you are going to be able to refill your mid's bottle now, because of course he wasn't able to get the rune, but again, kind of a weird one for him, because again, the emphasis is really on Mr. Jeans doing well in his lane, and he was doing really good early on, but again, that's where the matchup kind of just gets drawn out by really the good plays from Esk. Esk has not fallen behind at all, and he's going to be just as active.
Up in the top lane, yeah, they burn through the mana shield.
Nice.
Boy, that's a lot of damage. Level 2 shackles as well, so they have the extended duration there just to keep her under, and Mars comes in with the spear into the rebuke, and Boris, I mean, this is one of the downsides of the Medusa here early on. You are used to not dealing with a whole lot of pressure, so when it comes, you're not really that tanky. He's got 1 point up in the mana shield, so it's a nice kill by D2 Hustlers, and they might be looking for a little bit more. Empyrean, I believe he was spotted. So they know he's here. Flea has to actually track him down, but now that he sees him, they've got the shackles again. Monster can just wait things out, go for the spear afterwards into the rebuke, and yeah, I mean, that setup is just so easy for them.
Yeah, it's very simple. You just very easily, like you said, go for it, and they just knew he was there. They had the lane ward, so he wasn't going up, he wasn't going down, he wasn't going to the right, so it's a very simple kill, but goodbye, Mr. Jeans.
Making him work
Easy
a little
kill.
bit, but yeah, they still find it. Esk, though, knows Mr. Jeans has very little mana here, so he's going to try and push in. He wants to hold the Dissimulate, though, in case he needs to get away, and yeah, that's going to cost him the kill. If he can get the Dissimulate down for the damage, maybe he finds it, but if you don't hit, you have basically given yourself up as a free kill. So if you're Esk, better to play it safe there. You're going into about 2 or 3 heroes anyway, so he will fall back, and Mr. Jeans is allowed to retreat to the jungle, where he really just continues to farm here. We talked about Esk not really missing a beat, but Mr. Jeans is still sitting at the top of that net worth chart.
Yeah, just incredibly patient from him, just not giving up the play. It's just really smart, simple plays. I think, like you said, if S goes for that, he does just die. There is a universe where he does kill Mr. Jeans there, but that's why Empyrean's TP was so crucial. But Mr. Jeans does kill Devi again at the beginning of that, and he has got a really fast Orchid timing right now. Mr. Jeans is not messing around, no null talismans, he's just rushing for it wholeheartedly. And where he decides to TP, yeah, he's gonna go top. Right. Do they want Monster, though?
Do they know Flea's
here? Do they look for Flea? Yeah.
Well, they know now, but Flea, okay, he went in for the shackles onto Widge. Monster drops the arena into the spear. Mr. Jeans says, you know what? I was just kidding, guys. I didn't want to go in anyway. He backs himself out, but down in the bottom lane, they're actually going to make a play on Benjaz now, realizing the supports are kind of out of position. There's no one here to back him up, and well, S comes in. Yuma's there to help out. Yuma gets the kill, and what looked like a potentially nice setup in the top lane turns into 2 of their own heroes dead, and Mr. Jeans has just got to sort of fall back, but at least he's going to be able to finish off this Orchid in the next couple of minutes, but that really was, in all fairness, kind of a waste of Mr. Jeans' time.
Yeah, it's unfortunate. It drags you out of your lane. Of course, XP that is granted over to your supports, which, again, is going to be very nice. But Widge is going to need the Tome for his level 6. Then we get to see this Nyx Assassin get a little bit more aggressive. But that's what you signed Benjaz up for. He is by himself. He is just going to try and be as obnoxious as he can in this bottom lane. Be like, hey, guys, come kill me. It's a very easy kill. But you get it every single time. It's very simple for S to always make that rotation, especially if they get vision of Benjaz beforehand. Not to mention, with the lane really being as static as it is, Yuma just gets to do whatever he wants. And fortunately, he did swap up the build. No Midas, got the Falcon Blade instead. He's already done this before. But now we'll have to wait and see whether he goes for the Ethereal Blade Rush or if he goes for something a little bit better paced. We'll have to see how he reacts to Mr. Jean's Orchid. We might just see the Manta queued up immediately after that gets spotted.
Yeah, because Yuma, I mean, that Orchid could really doom him if he's on pretty much maxed out Agi.
This is going to be the fight. Smoked.
Who will they catch? Mr. Jeans gets hit up. They need the Fiend's Grip. Nice silence, though, to start it off. So they aren't going to get the lockdown, and Yuma's just going to give up on it right away, realizing the Bane's going to be dead before that silence wears off. Might as well just back away. So fast fingers there for Mr. Jeans. And now they know the Orchid has been picked up, and we shall see if Yuma's build maybe adjusts a little bit. So that's a big play from the Storm Spirit, though. If he gets taken down there, you are looking, oh boy, all the way.
Oh, it's mistimed. Doesn't have enough mana.
And now Widge is just going to kind of be left in the lurch here, but Empyrean? Okay, good defensive play, but now here comes Monster. Yeah, you just got to let Widge go. Appreciate the effort, I suppose, from your teammate, but this is just going to be a death. Widge does have that Impale right there, but Esk, with the Astral Step, delayed damage, still finishes him off.
Yeah, it's just unfortunate. They wanted that play so much from Mr. Jeans, but the only problem is when you are making plays on Storm Spirit, you see him walking back to the base a lot right now, and it's a problem that really they can't fix just yet. He's valuing, again, to make this pressure happen across the map as opposed to actually farming for himself, and that's where we'll have to see if his plays are going to end up being enough. There's a little fight for this regen rune. Empyrean's just prep himself to deny it. If he had the jump, maybe he could get a little bit cheekier. Oh, Monster.
Okay. Well, it's almost immediately taken away, but oh my god, Mr. Jeans, that is one hell of a zip, but well, he outran his support. There wasn't going to be any backup there if he did go for the Vortex, and now, just kind of unfortunate for him. He did bring Clarities, but this is one issue with this sort of early naked Orchid rush. You have it. You've got that potential for kills, but if you don't find the kills frequently, your mana regen is not massive. I mean, the Orchid certainly helps, but you really do need to be more and more aware of the fact that you have to start hitting with those plays. If you don't, then, as you said, he's taking a lot of trips back to the fountain right now as Benjaz, he's rotated himself mid. There's going to be the zip in to get the silence down. Empyrean's coming in as well. He's going to hold the ult, and I think they're just going to take the kill onto Flea, but Flea is buying a lot of time. Monster gets in. That's going to force out the Winter's Curse, but Monster's still fighting. Goes for the Spear Stun. Empyrean going to get hit up, and S now jumps in with the Astral Step. They should be able to find this kill. But it's just going to be a one-for-one trade in the supports right now. And look at Monster. He's been hit up by the DOT. Spirit Vessel's on him, so he kind of has to fall back. And it may be a one-for-one trade, but for now it's two-base controlling the field. But now Yuma wants to push in. Esk is there behind him, but the silence comes in once again. But they've got the Fiend's Grip. Benjaz in some trouble. Boris trying to cover with that Stone Gaze, and it is going to be enough for them to get onto Divine Llama, but they need more. I think they got Esk here with the DOT regardless, but it's Mr. Jeans who actually steals the kill with the Remnant, and okay, two base are able to hold. I mean, that was pretty fantastic. Sure, you lose the Venomancer, but you managed to survive through the Fiend's Grip. You take down that Bane. You get the Void Spirit as well. And Yuma, I mean, he joins the fight, but he really doesn't have too big of an impact. So you're taking him away from that farming pattern.
Oh, again, the battling on the rim. Monster just shoves him out of it. He pushes him. I don't think that was through the ball lightning, but it felt like it. And I guess you still do get the Invis rune. It isn't the biggest rune, so it's not like it matters too much to Mr. Jeans, but still, I think that the tip was the appropriate response there. But really, the past few minutes is going really as good as you could possibly want for D2 Hustlers, because again, the aggression isn't coming out onto Yuma. Oh, nice blink from Monster again. He doesn't even know.
Yeah, so that means he might still be in some trouble. Widge hunting, gets off the Vendetta hit. They're going to jump in to get the silence down as well, and this time they'll find the kill. And yeah, unfortunately, that blink was too good for Monster. He blinked so early that, as you said, he didn't know that he had just dodged that gank, and second time around they will get it. Mr. Jeans certainly had to burn through a lot of mana, but at least that time they do find their target. 5-0 now for the Storm Spirit, so his activity level, I mean, it's been high, and it is looking to get a little bit higher because the Storm, he's actually queued himself up a BKB as his second major purchase.
Yeah, and it does feel like he does need it just because you are going to be playing versus this Hex. It's always going to be a massive threat versus your hero. You need it for when you go in, and I think right now it's going to be incredibly stressful for him just because, again, the pressure is on you. You have that much more things to worry about when it comes to your mana pool. You just don't have that much per kill. I think that's where we're going to need to see, again, a lot of that pressure alleviated now from Widge, but that's also where it's going to be a little bit complicated for Benjaz, because it feels like, at least so far in some of his jumps, Mr. Jeans is playing like he has a bigger mana pool, when in actuality, he really doesn't. And that's also where it's a little bit concerning that Yuma is keeping up with the Medusa right now, and I think he's going to start getting involved once he has his Manta, and he doesn't need to worry about this one either. Oh, Grip.
Jump in onto Empyrean with the Fiend's Grip. They're going to lock him down. That should be an easy kill. Yuma even waveforms in to snipe it. So you get another kill into the Morphling's hands. 3 unknown now for him. And that Manta is very close to being completed. So at that point, your lockdown from the Storm Spirit that he sort of rushed for is not really going to be effective on the Morph. Of course, still going to do a lot of good against anyone else.
Kill.
They want it. The silence is there. He doesn't have the Manta yet, so he can't purge it away, and that was huge. Widge and Mr. Jeans setting it up. That's the exact combo we were talking about in the draft when we saw these two. But now, over on the other side of the map, Monster, he jumped in alongside Esk, but they really don't have the kill. They wanted the tower more than anything else, but now they have to try and actually get out. Esk is holding onto an illusion rune, though, so he's going to pop that. That's going to remove some of those debuffs, but he's just not getting away. Those slows just keeping him in range. Benjaz will take him down, so you lose Yuma in the jungle, you lose your Void Spirit, they get the tier 2 tower, so that's some gold going back their way, but some very nice plays from TOOBASED to catch their opponents off guard.
Yeah, and it's really strange from D2 Hustlers because Devi has just sat down bottom, been getting a lot of XP, I think, almost assuming that someone would come bot to kill him pretty soon, but there are no ward sentry combos down on the map right now. They really tried to make a home at that top area, and while they do claim the tower with kind of just their existence and being there, losing Esk in that fashion is really not nice. They got no return kills either, so it feels like they're definitely having trouble now trying to establish themselves, while I think TOOBASED, I mean, they're 3k up with the Medusa. They're going to farm pretty happily for this next item. Really, once Yuma looks like he's going to be finishing up that Scotty, that's when Boris is going to be pretty unhappy with the game state. But, oh, they're looking for Flea. Well,
that's tight. Silence in there as well, and Widge coming in to help out, grab himself an assist, and Flea will quickly be taken down. So Mr. Jeans, he really just continues to push his way forward. We talked about it earlier, the fact that he was maybe missing some of these opportunities, but the important thing to note about any of those missed opportunities is it was never a situation that actually backfired on him. The worst case scenario for the Storm so far has just been that he can't get a kill. There hasn't really been any sort of significant consequences. He hasn't been taken down at any point in this game, so might as well keep going, and part of the reason why they've been able to create all this space for that Medusa, and you mentioned earlier on that Yuma had sort of been keeping pace, that's not quite the same circumstance anymore.
Yeah, it does feel like really they are going to be pretty comfortable. And like you said, Mr. Jeans, even though he has whiffed every once in a while, he has a Nyx Assassin that's been helping him out. Not just that, he hasn't died yet. Once he dies once, then it might feel a little bit harder for them to make some of these plays. But that's also where I think the pressure hasn't been put on him yet, because Monster hasn't been really finding him in these arenas. Flea does have a pretty scary item on its way. He's got that Blink Dagger up in another 200 gold. But this is also really smart from D2. Once they get this Aegis into what I can only assume Yuma's hands, he is going to be fearless for the upcoming minutes, and this might be their opportunity to take a few jabs at that mid tower. It's unfortunate because they're so scared, and Mr. Jeans had a really good reaction top, but they don't have this Veno just close enough to finally get something. Actually, Grip.
Nightmare and Fiend's Grip going down. They get the Hex out as well. Empyrean is not going to be able to get the ult off early, but he does throw it down there. Monster getting kind of blown up by his own teammates. He's not dead yet, but they will be able to finish him off. Meanwhile, Yuma, he didn't get any attribute shifting off, so they burn through the first life, and now Devi, he doesn't have the Fiend's Grip to help his teammates. So Yuma, okay, defensive Nightmare. That buys time for the attribute shift, and now the Morphling will TP home while your Bane basically sacrifices himself. So, to be honest, I thought they were going to be able to handle that so much better. There's a Nightmare onto one target, a Fiend's Grip onto another. They needed just to blow up Empyrean because they don't, and that actually kind of cost them the fight. That Winter's Curse was absolutely huge, catching out both Monster and Yuma, and from there, TOOBASED just completely run over their opponents.
Esk was struggling to find an entrance and a target to really stick on there. I think he was so afraid of getting caught out by either the Orchid or, again, the AoE coming in from the Curse that he didn't really have an opportunity there. They had vision of both supports there on the low ground, and really the big misplay was coming in from Monster. Unfortunately, he tried to get the arena onto 2, but then pushed Widge even further away from any danger. It's unfortunate, and then
this is not going to be easy, and Flea, he's immediately getting turned on. Yeah, that's the problem. Esk, he can dish out the damage, but he can't defend anything else, and he's just got to run, but the Spike Carapace, it's going to lock him down. Mr. Jeans gets in for the Vortex, and they've got him. The kill will be split, but I don't think they care. They find a huge pick up there onto the opposing mid laner, and D2 Hustlers, they need to sort of take a step back here, because that's consecutive engagements that have really turned against them.
Yeah, and again, that Aegis would have been so important for Yuma going forward here, but because of how the map really has started to turn into 2-base favor, we're seeing really no aggression towards those towers, and I think that's incredibly important to take away from Mr. Jeans, because again, we keep seeing him just make a play, walk back to waste, bullwhip himself, try to get back as fast as he can, but then he TPs to these towers, these tier 1s that are still alive, and without this mid tier 1 gone, he is just always living in the river, a place that Esk feels like he can't exist in that same space. And they're looking for a play top, but Empyrean's got a blink. Widge is just walking away, and it's just another whiff.
Just can't really seem to get anything going. Meanwhile, Scotty picked up by the Medusa, so they're going to go back in. They get the silence down onto Divine Llama, trying to make sure that Fiend's Grip doesn't come into play here. But Flea is going to come in. He gets the shackles down. That's a huge play onto Mr. Jeans. They'll take him down. And now look at Monster in with the arena. Empyrean does get off the ult, though, but there's no one else in here to do any damage. Monster survives, and Yuma's just going to start blowing up heroes. Widge is there, but now Boris coming in to redress the balance. He's going to just throw out the ult. And that does allow them to take Monster down, but you look at Yuma, you look at Esk, they just want to go back in. Not really sure if that would be the safest play for them. They're starting to drift further and further away from these Serpent Wards, but they hold their own. They get those 2 kills, and for the Storm, I mean, he had a BKB. He just didn't think he would need it, and Flea kind of catches him by surprise.
You can't see it now because the Mars Arena actually killed the trees that Flea was playing in, but it was just really tight from him. His positioning was perfect. He didn't even need to blink. He just simply hexed and then repositioned himself to get off some really obnoxious wards. But it's that greed that is now a 2k gold swing. Of course, you still lose Monster, which is something that is going to kind of affect you less as the game goes on, just because he is going to get his BKB pretty soon here. Then he doesn't need to be worried nearly as much.
Whoa.
And oh, what a zip.
That's a long one onto Flea. Should be able to get the kill here with the burn. Yeah. So.
Ping the ward. Yeah, it's just unfortunate for him. But again, Mr. Jeans, he just does it over and over again. Every single time he has the mana available to him, he goes for that play. And finally, after those little pickoffs, Boris is now strong enough to actually push into these buildings. Boris, while he doesn't have the mana shield on right now, he's got a full Scotty, and that means that Yuma does not want to show up to these engagements right now. Even though Yuma could buy out a BKB right now, we'll have to see what he goes for, but still, you don't want to be forced to buy a BKB too soon. Really, the carry who buys a BKB first in this type of game is usually the one that has to be even more careful with their usage.
Yeah, you got to keep an eye on those sort of charges going further and further down on the duration. Meanwhile, for Esk, he is just about done with his Aghanim Scepter here. So if he can get that Resonant Pulse upgrade, then they've got a whole lot more to work with in terms of that utility, but you still got to get through the Medusa at this point. Boris is no longer sort of sitting back and farming, so they do need an answer on that front, and, well, I mean, they've got the tools, right? You've got your Fiend's Grip, your Nightmare still, you could hit up with that Arena Spear combo. That's going to get you through that Mana Shield relatively quickly. It's just, you need to be able to make that play onto the Medusa whilst also being able to deal with the rest of the 2-base lineup, because that Medusa is, if 2-base are being smart about it, really just never going to be so alone that you can pull that off.
Yeah, and Boris's positioning is also killer because you send your Mantis top, you cut the wave, you get to play in the enemy team's triangle. I'm glad he's fixing his inventory, carry player inventory. He's got these branches and slippers still 24 minutes into the game, but he's got a full crit now. So his Crystallis is going to be a lot more damage that he's going to be able to play around with, as well as really the gap closing even further. And the more actual damage items he gets, I mean, he's poking your high ground right now, and there's a huge smoke coming in from 2-base, or rather from D2 Hustlers to try and get onto 2-base, but unfortunately, they weren't in the area that they thought. They thought they were going to be farming in their own triangle, but instead, they're going to be forced in this position on the low ground, high ground. I think Empyrean, he's got an Observer Ward here. It's nighttime as well, so this jump needs to be perfect for Monster, otherwise they're going to get turned on so hard.
He does have the BKB finished off now, though, so if he wants the push in, he is going to have it. Yuma, though, he just walks in. Nobody was watching it. They're still up here. They're still actually protected by their smoke, and they get directly onto Widge. That is very unfortunate, but Winter's Curse is going to go down. That keeps Monster out of the fight initially, but Empyrean is going to pay for it, but there's an immediate buyback coming in from Divine Llama. He wants to rejoin this fight, try to get some sort of Fiend's Grip play. No, okay, not going to go for the Fiend's Grip just yet. It's the Nightmare instead on a bench, as I think that's probably the wise decision because his teammates, they weren't actually coming in for a second round of fighting. So if he does commit the Fiend's Grip there, everybody kind of has to just scramble to push in for the engagement. But as it stands, that is going to be a relatively big maneuver by D2 Hustlers, but they're looking for another opportunity. They're still kind of hanging around, and so too are simply 2-based. But looks like 2-based are going to blink first. They're starting to back away.
Yeah, they know that this hill is warded. They know that they can't fight around it. If they do, there's always the threat of just losing your mana before. And actually ask, okay, he's got Yules. Doesn't want to use it though.
Essence Ring instead for the bonus HP, and he's just able to walk out under his own power. So
They're marching in.
yeah, they still want it. Wedge is coming over. Sentry Ward might have tagged him there, though, but he is still going to be able to get the stun down onto Devi Llama. He just bought back on this Bane as well, so really they do need to try and keep him alive, but just not going to be able to. Devi will fall, but at least he can become some sort of distraction, but a distraction for what? Esk is trying to get away. Flea jumps in. He'll be taken down pretty easily, and, well, that's both of your supports down, and the cores aren't really in a position to follow up.
Yeah, and fortunately for them, Yuma did do a nice play with his Mantis Out, just trying to push in the wave, because they don't want to go up high ground just yet, but in the game of Chicken, two-based win. They get the hill back, they kill all of the D2 Hustler's vision, and now this tier 2 is probably going to be forfeit. Full Daedalus on Boris as well, so he really is not afraid of anyone. And we'll see what he queues up next. Could just be, okay, going for a little bit of an SCA play here. Looking at the Blink Dagger, probably into the Swift Blink after that. No Satanic, even though there's no works of Scotty just yet coming in from Yuma, but we'll have to see. Is this the earliest Roche? Oh, wow. 15 seconds.
Pretty damn close, yeah. And yeah, that blink for the Medusa, I mean, you can blink yourself around things like the Serpent Wards, maybe get over the arena pretty easily, so just easier to put yourself directly in the middle of that engagement, so we'll see how well it works out. You can just pop that in for the Quelling Blade. Meanwhile, for Benjaz, he got himself an Aeon Disc, so this Venomancer really hadn't even been in a sacrificial position all that often, but now he can maybe feel a bit more confident. Push in, get that Nova onto everybody, because there's not going to be enough of an immediate response to now blow him up with that disc to bail him out. So he's got a little bit more room to, oh boy, to operate here, as both sides realizing, yeah, Roche is back up, and we are going to have to fight for it as Widge gets close. Esk, though, that is one hell of a jump in onto Empyrean. Yuma comes in as well, and they've just blown him up, so the Winter's Curse not going to be a factor. Meanwhile, the Nightmare was thrown onto Boris. Flea tried to get around the back end, but Mr. Jeans is going to shut that one down fairly quickly. But now Widge in with the Impale onto the Mars. The Electric Vortex out for Mr. Jeans as well, and Monster gets caught. Two dead on the side of D2 Hustlers. Actually, neither one of them have buyback either, so maybe this is the opening for TOOBASED to just slip back into the Roche Pit, try and really take it as quickly as they can.
Yeah, and really, there isn't an easy way for D2 Hustlers to now walk back in. You would need Esk to pretty much suicidally jump in, even though he's only going to have one step for, I think, a few more seconds here, and this is probably just going to be a forfeit. And this is a really nice Roche to have on the Medusa. Get the Ag Shard, so now anytime you're getting that Adaptive Strip cast on you, you throw a Snake back and you get another 800 mana back. It just feels like this might be the ages to actually break the base here, and they got to fix their waves a little bit, but look at Mr. Jeans. He's just hunting, always. He's going to whiff just barely.
That could have been sort of backbreaking if they'd have lost Esk there. That would have led really directly into a high ground push, but, well, Mr. Jeans, he gets close, but not quite close enough. But at this point, TOOBASED, as you said, they need to fix up some of their lanes, but they still have so much control over the map. They are free to operate on their opponent's side, really, with impunity at this stage. And your D2 Hustlers, what kind of response can you mount here? Everyone is back up, but do you have the strength? Is it a simple, let's go for a 5-man smoke and see what we can get, or are they going to try and draw this one out a little bit more? Because Yuma, he's getting closer to that Scotty, actually, but still not quite there.
Yeah, and I think that's where maybe Yuma did a misstep, where he just doesn't have enough damage coming in without the Ethereal Blade, so he's not really able to finish off a lot of these kills that he's needing Esk to help him finish, and I think that's where we're really lacking a lot of damage now, and it's a weakness that the Mars definitely has, but we haven't seen recently, because usually that Mars is so far ahead of anyone else in the game, it feels like he can be his own damage in a lot of those situations, but unfortunately, now Mars is not really contributing that much, and all of your damage is coming from Yuma, who has to play so scared in a lot of these situations, and I mean, he's just tanking up right now. Oh, Mr. Jeans killed Esk.
Oh man,
with
Esk.
Widge.
He was just trying to farm up outside in the jungle. They take him down, and he doesn't have buyback. He doesn't have the money for it, and if they realize that on TOOBASED, honestly, it might just be sort of full send scenario for them. think they're going to start maybe getting the picture at this stage. If he's not buying back now, they're either incredibly disciplined or he can't actually do it.
Yeah, I think they're assuming he has it, but at the same time, it's also so scary. You don't want to end up pushing into a fight. You know you're going to lose, and they're glyphing, but the delay really isn't there. If Boris gets nightmared, then he's just simply going to get woken up by Benjaz. And
oh, Mr. Jeans into the base, looking for the kill. Boris blinks forward, popping that stone gaze as well, and these two hustlers just get shoved back towards their own fountain. Divide Llama is dead with no buyback available, and they'll just go right back onto the rack. Should be able to clean up the melee. The ranged, I don't know if they want to stick around for it with Esk respawning, but Boris really doesn't have to be afraid of too much, so he's just going to stand here and finish it off.
Yeah, and Esk TP'd in a very aggressive position, looking for really any jump, but really we're starting to feel those damage problems coming through now. Especially because not just you having the Mars, but it's Mars Void Spirit. So if you don't have a fabulous early game, you really are struggling to kill this Medusa now. Medusa, by the way, who has a full Swift Blink, so you are just able to siege so much faster now, as well as just jump with Mr. Jeans. And of course, Mr. Jeans had to fix himself there just because he did use all of that mana simply for a Bane kill, as well as BKB, but he got a regen rune now. You can do the exact same thing mid, and without really D2 Hustlers going for some type of special positioning on that backline, we might just see the same event play out mid.
And just, if you're D2 Hustlers, not entirely sure what the game plan will be for them. Maybe it's just hoping your opponents make some sort of mistake, but as you said, they're just so oh boy, lacking in damage as Mr. Zine, so he just actually zipped into the Fiend's Grip, but there's going to be the Winter's Curse. Empyrean is a hero there, saving his buddy. Divine Llama gets taken down, and now Yuma, he had to pop the BKB, but he doesn't have a waveform. He waveformed into the fight, so now he's got to wait for that cooldown. He is going to be able to pull himself back into the base, but look at Mr. Jeans continuing to chase. Widge blinking forward as well, getting down the stun with the Impale, and they will burn through. Yuma taken down. Yuma does not have his buyback. He just spent his money, so...
Game.
Yeah, that might just be it. Without anyone else coming back in, they can definitely push for that second lane of racks, and... Well, we'll see what happens after the second lane. Do they go straight in for the tier 4s, or do we maybe see them just rotate bot and look for the mega creeps at this point?
I think it really depends on, really, once they know that the Morphling has no intentions of buying back, they might already be aware, but they might still be a little bit afraid of Monster just spearing someone into death. Look, Mr. He's not even playing the game right now. You might even die for not playing the game.
Yeah, hold on. That's a little dicey, and he will end up falling, but really, yeah, give him the tip, but at this point, Boris is the one that they need to be really wary of. He's the battering ram, and you see him just objective focused, going in for that bottom lane of racks over and over again. And I mean, honestly, Mr. Jeans, he could buy back if he is really needed, but it feels like at this point, this one is relatively well in hand. The mega creeps have been acquired, and Simply TOOBASED have a lead that is about as close to unthrowable as you can possibly get. I mean, nothing is ever truly unthrowable. We've seen that in the past, but it would take monumental and multiple mistakes for TOOBASED at this point to sort of throw this one away.
Yeah, I think, and I pretty much agree with Yuma here. Get the Rapier. Hope that you can actually do anything to cause Boris to want to run away from your high ground. I mean, you've got Megas, you've got a DD scouted out, you're going to have a full Aghanim Scepter as well, so anytime you go on this Medusa, you can't shackle her anymore unless that Stone Gaze or that Cold-Blooded is already popped. I think this might just be the timing to kind of break the game. And of course, Mr. Jeans is not that far away. 10 seconds. You never got this tier 1 tower on D2, and I think that was really where this game started to fall apart for them. And, well, Benjaz is just being really obnoxious here, but again, he just gives the vision over to Mr. Jeans, and then Mr. Jeans takes it and then runs away.
We'll see if Hustlers can buy the time. Okay, that's a long zip again on the monster. You're going to be able to stun him up to follow it up. That's a nice Nightmare, though, so they did lock Mr. Jeans down, but now here comes the Winter's Curse. Empyrean going to keep Monster locked down. He does have the Arena, though. We will see him throw it out now. The Spear connecting onto Mr. Jeans, so they did take down the Storm Spirit a second time. Now Widge trapped up inside of those Serpent Wards, but they really do need to deal with Boris. They can kill all the heroes they want around the edges, but the Medusa has to be dealt with, and they just can't do it. Devi will fall, buying back immediately, but I'm not sure they're actually going to be able to get everyone away here. Yuma's still getting hit up, but Ask jumping in, getting the silence down onto multiple heroes, looking for the damage with the Dissimulate. If they can take Empyrean down again, that's a lot of the defensive strength taken away, but Benjaz dropping the ult, Poison Nova onto about 2 or 3, and that really is going to break up that fight. Empyrean does not die as he's able to get himself out of there, and Divine Llama He just gets taken down a second time, so it just seems too difficult for D2 Hustlers at this point.
Yeah, and really, it's some real grit for them to even attempt to stand up here whenever you're megas, because you immediately are going to have creeps coming in there. They had one play where they get to kind of exist up here before those megas do start beating on your door, and they definitely get their targets. They kill, again, Mr. Jeans, who is getting very greedy with his BKB usage because he really thinks he can, and that was a choke where things definitely got dangerous for just a few seconds there. But when Empyrean is forced to clone brace you again, we talked about it a little bit in the draft. You are just pulled into Hex, into Nightmare, into Grip, into Spear. You're just not going to get your BKB off at that point. And really, I think this needs to happen another 2 or 3 times. That was Mr. Jeans also buying out for the Aghanim Scepter, so we'll have to see. It does feel like he's a little bit zip crazy. He's got a Illusion Rune as well, so it's even more defensive capabilities for him. Doesn't need to worry about Esk nearly as much now, but still, it's an incredibly dangerous game, and Yuma just wants this Rapier. If he can get the Rapier, then maybe there's a way that they hold, but I also think that all it takes is one huge vacuum from Mr. Jeans, and then the game most likely will just end on that.
All he needs to do is hit the one combo. Meanwhile, the Void did get himself that Kai Assange finished off, so his damage output does take a little bit of a step forward, his durability as well, but not sure if that's going to be enough to matter. Meanwhile, Flea, oh, is he going to get away? No, he's not. Wedge able to blink right on top of him. He'll go in for the stun, and Flea will be taken down here. He was just trying really to push the lane out to buy some time. He will be taken down, but he's one of the heroes who has buyback up on that D2 Hustlers side, so they can get him right back into the fight, and it feels like there is going to be a fight, because TOOBASED are starting to push into that base. They want the tier 4s, and realistically, they just want to end the game right now, but what do D2 Hustlers have? What's in the tank for them? They don't have that Rapier. They still haven't had enough time to farm it. Just trading shots right now. Not really looking to commit fully, but Boris, yeah, this is the problem. If you don't fully commit for the fight, that's a Medusa who's just sort of knocking on your door looking for the tier 4 towers, so you can only afford to really delay for so long before things get a little bit rough, and you see Yuma actually already falling back. There's the jump in from Esk, though, getting the silence onto 2. The Manta immediately removing it, though, and well, it looks like Esk really kind of just went in alone. Monster does try for the arena, but his mana gets burned away. He's really not going to be able to do too much here, activating the Bulwark, but he's just going to get completely locked down. But Boris does get hit up by the Fiend's Grip, not going to last long, though. There's that AoE Vortex coming into play. They pull in Yuma, they'll take him down. A buyback comes out immediately from the Morphling, but at this point, it feels like it might be too late. The Witch's Curse now deployed onto everyone as Yuma just has no choice but to kill his own teammate, and that's going to do it. Esk will fall, Yuma dead as well, and the GG gets thrown out there as simply TOOBASED. Well, they go back to what they know. You put Mr. Jeans on a Storm Spirit, you put Boris on the Medusa, and it turns out, well, it's kind of tried and true for a reason.
Yeah, it felt like really they just did a fantastic job, and not just that, I think that both Monster and Esk kind of dropped the ball this game, because again, it's easy for me to point out just because that mid tower never went down. We never saw them get aggressive on TOOBASED side of the map, and maybe that's where this Veno starts to make a little bit more sense. If anything, they could have maybe punched it a little bit more. He really was the weakest member on TOOBASED for a very long time. It felt like he was really going to be a big target that D2 Hustlers could hit, but they just didn't. It felt like once Benjes got set up, D2 Hustlers just completely avoided that side of the map, and unfortunately, he played in the mid lane for such a long time that they never found that opportunity to take down that tower. And without that tower gone, Mr. Jeans just got to play really an incredibly free Storm Spirit game. Of course, he went for second item BKB. He was terrified of the disables coming out of Flea, but unfortunately for D2 Hustlers, it never felt like Esk or Monster were the ones threatening him. And Mr. Jeans also just made a play over and over and over again. He ended the game with less than 250 last hits because he did not care. That was Boris's job. His job was to create chaos around the map. He even ends up less net worth than the Venomancer in this game. I just feel like really we got to see Mr. Jeans shine this game. He just really balled out of control.
Just absolute pure aggression, really, in its best possible form there. And yeah, we talked about it in the game. When you can make those sorts of plays, and even when you whiff, there are no consequences other than you have to sort of walk your way back to the base to really refill. All that says to Mr. Jeans is, hey, keep trying, because if you fail, you just get to try again. And if you succeed, you're putting your opponents on the back foot, you're applying that pressure. So It was an incredible performance from him, but honestly, you look at some of the supports as well. Widget and Empyrean, they had some really fight-saving plays. The Impales, Empyrean in particular with that Winter's Curse. Without that, it felt like maybe there were one or two fights that D2 Hustlers were in a position to swing their way, and that Winter's Curse just broke up everything they were trying to put together.
Yeah, and I think again, just one winning. It's the D2 Hustlers way. I think that really has been the theme for them in a lot of these BTS Pro series. They just take games off of everyone. It's going to be interesting to see what happens when they go up versus some of those South American teams.
Yeah. The 1-1 is all well and good, but you've played up so far against what? Simply TOOBASED and Arkosh, which certainly formidable teams, but we're not looking at the sort of Thunder Predators and Infamouses just yet. So when those matchups come, we'll see if D2 Hustlers can maintain that sort of 1-1 consistency. For now, though, both teams walk away with a point. So you got to at least be somewhat happy regardless of which side of the matchup that you're on. So congratulations to D2 Hustlers and Simply TOOBASED. But with that, we are going to be moving along here. We have one last series on the night. It is going to be another North American matchup. We'll see four Zoomers back in action facing off against Black and Yellow, who obviously have a little bit of a different lineup considering some of their previous players have already been seen on some of the teams that have already played. So going to get a look at them in about, I believe, 10 to 15 minutes here. So we will be moving into that final series of the night. Again, four Zoomers versus Black and Yellow coming up next.